You're listening live to Rightside Radio with Phil Williams. It's hard to go wrong when you're on the right side. Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right.
Alabama's syndicated news talk leader, Rightside Radio. Phil Williams here live in the Rightside studios. Man, we got the local, the state, the national, covering down on all of the issues. And yeah, like the dude just said, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Well, welcome to Tuesday. What do we name this? It's like, okay, so what is it?
Camel Eve.
What is it? We got what?
Camel Eve.
It's Camel Eve.
Yeah, Camel Eve.
That's right, Camel Eve. Some referred to it as Taco Tuesday, which of course meant that Charlene and I had tacos that time. But nonetheless, welcome to Tuesday. We're glad you're here. And that was Boomer on the board. Hey, buddy.
That's me.
How are you?
I'm good.
I'm glad.
Thanks.
We got a good show laid on for you at 3 o'clock today. Been on the show with us many times. You guys know who he is. Mike Durant. Former special operations aviator, a well-respected businessman, and a past candidate for the U.S. Senate, is going to be on with us because we're going to be talking about some stuff going on in Gaza. And folks, they're saying this could be one of the biggest urban battles in 100 years. And this is no fooling. And we're going to talk about it with him because if anybody knows what it's like to go into the urban environment to conduct warfare, Mike Durant would be one of those guys. So yeah, Mike Durant, 3 o'clock. We're going to talk about it from his military background. Stay tuned for that. And then I got a triple dipper, so hit it, buddy.
The Triple Dipper. 3 stories you've got to know.
That's right, the triple dipper. 3 stories, 3 themes, if you will. You got to know as we run today's show. Number 1, right out the gate, I'm calling it kicking the anthill. That's what it's like in the urban environment. I can just tell you from Baghdad, in the urban environment, if something happens, all of a sudden people are spilling out of doors, running down alleys, things are happening, fast moving, trying to keep track. It's like kicking an anthill. Well, that's what Gaza's about to be. I mean, picture this. They've got 2 million people in a space that is 1/3 the size of Huntsville. Can you imagine? 2 million people in a space of 1/3 the size of Huntsville. Well, we're gonna talk about what that means for urban warfare, what Israel may be looking at, what some of the experts are saying. Yeah, number 1, triple dipper, kicking the anthill. And number 2, there is breaking news going on. It's going to be part of our dipper. What's going on with the race for the U.S. House of Representatives Speaker of the House? Well, there have been some developments. There have already been some votes. We're still working the issue, let's put it that way. But number 2 on the triple dipper is the speaker's race. So stay tuned for that. And then number 3, got to stay focused on where we live, right? So at this point, I've got international, then I've got national. Now we're bringing it home. Number 3 on the triple dipper, we'll look at what's going on right here in your neighborhood. Home fries. Going to cook up a batch of home fries for the day. So stay tuned for that one as number 3 on the triple dipper is about home fries. All right. Let me jump over here to my comments for the day. The opening monologue, The Rightside Way, and I'll remind you guys, we are extremely grateful that Southern Immediate Care, a chain of clinics all across North Alabama, Southern Immediate Care is the sponsor of the Rightside Way monologue. They are open 7 days a week. They will see all ages. And folks, I'm just telling you, they are professional, solid, clean. Just basically, they're going to be there for you if you need them 7 days a week. Southern Immediate Care, sponsor of the Rightside Way monologue. So here's my opening. You ready? You may have seen recently that Joe Biden had to eat his words on the border wall. Oh, how about that? For years, Biden has said that anything Trump did was bad. He especially eschewed the idea of building a wall. Well, during his presidential campaign in 2020, Biden promised there would not be another foot built of the wall if he was elected. On his first day in the Oval Office, Biden rescinded Trump's executive orders on border wall construction. His hapless Secretary of Homeland Security, Alejandro Mayorkas, recently said that the administration still does not believe that a border wall is the answer. And then, lo and behold, they had an epiphany. The clouds parted, and Mayorkas said, quote, "There is presently an acute and immediate need to construct physical barriers and roads in the vicinity of the border of the United States in order to prevent unlawful entries into the United States." Holy cow, can someone please ring a bell? I mean, they've tried to blame it on budgeting processes that kept the money dedicated so they had no choice but to spend it. Sure, that's what happened, because Biden is such a rule follower. What really happened here, though, was that the administration actually finally began to hear a bipartisan ruckus rising up from citizens and local leaders who were just plain old fed up. And it happened that this poor policy decision that they had made received such a public outcry that even the usual tone-deaf Biden administration had to do something. You see, that's what happens when good people speak out. So one of my favorite passages in the Bible is in 1 Samuel 14. It's an awesome story. I have read it, dissected it, gone over it in different translations, reviewed what commentaries have to say on it. I mean, there's so many lessons in that one passage. But despite how many times I've reviewed that same passage, I found on one occasion recently that my attention was drawn to two verses, verses 45 and 46. You see, just prior to that point that I'm talking about, King Saul's son Jonathan had galvanized a beleaguered and depressed nation of Israel. The Israelites were hiding in their caves from the Philistines, but Jonathan, he was a warrior. And he sparked some life back into the Israelite army by picking a fight and winning. His father, King Saul, was already in the process of losing his grip on the throne. He had kind of gotten out of hand with some bad decisions, and sure enough, King Saul just kept making bad policy decisions. Awful, bad public policy. At one point, King Saul decided it'd be a great idea to make the sudden and reckless pronouncement that nobody would have a single bite to eat until they had wiped out the Philistines. Well, I'm sure it sounded cool sitting around the fireside with his generals, but troops go into battle without rations? Well, it got worse when it became a sustained battle that took on several days. The army was getting winded, but the king's bad policy decision was still in front of him. The only one who had not gotten the word because he was too busy actually fighting the Philistines was King Saul's son, Jonathan, the same hero who had inspired the battle itself. And sure enough, Jonathan came upon a beehive, and he dipped his sword down in the honeycomb, and he ate the honey. Well, that became a whole thing. I mean, really, there he was, Jonathan, the hero of the nation, unaware of a stupid and rash policy decision that did nothing to achieve victory, by the way. He's focused on winning. But when his father, King Saul, found out, he pronounced that his own son would now have to die for violating the king's edict. The king actually stopped the battle. He quit pursuing the enemy who were already on the run, just to deal with his son having a bite of honey on the battlefield. Well, you can imagine how that went over. The people were beside themselves. They respected their king, but they loved Jonathan. He was their hero. Everyone knew it was a bad policy decision, but no one had issued a contrary word of counsel to the king when he proclaimed it. They just all went, "Okay, king." But now Jonathan's life was on the line, and the people, they had had enough. So in 1 Samuel 14, verses 45 and 46, the people made themselves heard, and they did so very clearly. The direct quote from a modern translation of the Bible says this in verse 45. It says, "But the troops retorted, 'Jonathan, who saved Israel today, shall die? Far from it. We vow by the life of God that not one hair on his head will be touched, for he has been used of God to do a mighty miracle today.' So the people rescued Jonathan," it says. "And then Saul called back the army, and the Philistines returned home." That's the verses. Let me paraphrase that for you. The troops retorted, it says. A retort is a stiff reply. It's really like almost belligerent or argumentative. They were not taking this up for debate. They basically said, "Well, by God, that's not going to happen. He's the reason we had a victory. You're not touching a hair on his head. He's the only one among us who's been in God's will all along." And then it said, Saul just quit the battle and let the Philistines just go home. You see, here's the thing. Here's what got my attention. When I keyed in on that passage, I know that leaders sometimes make bad decisions. Stuff happens. You make a decision based on what you know at the time. It doesn't necessarily work out. Sometimes leaders chase rabbits. Sometimes they forget what's important. But some leaders also become prideful, and they believe that because they set a policy that there's no discussion, doesn't matter what the outcome will be. But their policies could not ever be wrong, could they? But here's the deal. If that passage teaches you anything, let it teach you this. The people still have a voice. People can still affect change with their voice, and the people can still band together and make themselves known. Take note that in the story I just related that no one threatened the king, no one raised a finger to him, no one insulted him or renounced him as their leader, but they did say, "Enough is enough." And they chose to disobey and to call for sanity in the midst of the madness. And the people were willing to put their own names on the line. They stuck their necks out there, but they did it because they were loyal to the one who was being mistreated. They saw an injustice, and they would not sit idly by and be quiet. They spoke up. So here's my point. When we see really bad decisions in the realm of public policy, like shutting down businesses and churches during the pandemic, or mandating vaccinations or you lose your job, or teaching kids that they are privileged oppressors or hapless victims just because of the skin color God gave them, or when government grows itself in your tax dollars with no relief to the citizens, or like we saw with the issue of the wall, when the southern border is non-existent and millions are flooding across it illegally. For all of those reasons, and many more, it's incumbent upon the people to become what Thomas Jefferson described as a well-informed citizenry and to make our voices heard. And I'll tell you, man, based on what I read in 1 Samuel and what I saw with the flip-flop on the border wall, apparently making our voices heard can be very effective. Let's get her done, folks. It's amazing what will happen when good folks speak up. And that's a wrap for the Right Side Way. There you have it. I love it. I love it when Scripture is like applicable, isn't it? Isn't it amazing? I mean, that's a story from thousands of years ago. How applicable is that to today? Very much so, I'd say. Listen, if you see a bad thing, you're allowed to say it's a bad thing. And a leader should never get so entrenched in their policy positions that they can't ever acknowledge that maybe I need to do something different. Phil Williams, Right Side Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative and just plain right. Well, wow. All right, text lines are already open. Some of y'all are already finding out. If you want to text in or call in, the number's the same either way, 833-687-4448. That's 833-68-RIGHT. And by the way, folks say things once in a while like, oh, I missed your monologue, or oh, I missed that segment you had with the interview, or whatever else. Just know this. You can go get these any day. After we get off the air, Boomer gets them in podcast form and sends them out. And we have a ton of people downloading the podcast. So you're welcome to go get it. Almost any podcast version known to man. If you're on Apple iTunes, if you're on Podbean, if you're on whatever. It's also, by the way, live streamed. Even I will say today I'm overdressed for radio, but it is always live streamed, and you can catch those on YouTube. And we had some great interviews even yesterday. So if you missed it, you can always catch it after the fact. Plus, let me just point out to you, Boomer is not just a pretty face. He's just like looking at me right now, like, why is this happening? but he takes the resource. When you hear me snapping paper, every day on a story. Boomer's already got the links to every story that we're going to have up on the website, rightsideradio.org. So go to rightsideradio.org, go to the live stream page. There's a button there that says resources. Just click on it. You can find a link to any story. There's some good ones we're going to go into here in a few minutes as we get into what I'm calling kicking the anthill. Yeah, there's that. Just stay tuned for all of it. Hey, what's the scoop on little man's baseball? You guys got the perfect week for after hours baseball right now. Is that happening?
One last game tonight.
One?
Yep.
Just tonight?
That's it.
All right.
He has a soccer game tonight and a baseball game tonight.
Wait a minute. You got that boy playing 2 sports in one day?
3.
What?
Oh, well, not in one day. Not 3 in one day, but 2 in one day, yes.
Is he going to write a dissertation in quantum physics too while we're at it?
Probably. I told him he had to do that on the way to the baseball game.
How's he going to squeeze 2 games into one night?
So literally right after the show is his soccer game, and then we're going to pull him early from the soccer game to get to the baseball game.
Holy smokes.
So, yeah, that'll be he'll be tired tonight, so that's a good day.
I was about to say he'll sleep well tonight.
That's a good day.
Wasn't that what Deion Sanders? Didn't Deion Sanders one time playing football? And I forgot which one he went from one to the other.
Baseball to football? Or
he had a helicopter fly him, actually.
Yeah, in between.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
That is crazy. So what you're saying is you got a helicopter to fly little man to his next game. All
That's
right.
right.
I want to be a part of that team. Several texts are already in. You're welcome to it. Chris from Gadsden says... What are you saying to me? Hang on, where's my mouse? Chris from Gadsden says, does overdress from radio mean you're wearing pants? Yes, I can confirm that I am wearing pants.
Yes, wearing pants. Yes, that's very true.
There would be an issue if otherwise. The perils of having a camera in studio, yes. John from Huntsville, Phil, nice monologue, definitely one of your best. Also, kicking an anthill or standing in one is very dangerous. Indeed, sir, indeed. Cameron from Decatur says, can you tell us a little more about the, no, I don't know that I can because we don't hear the advertisements. There's not every ad that is sold is from us, but for the most part, I can't stop the show to talk to you about an advertisement, so I apologize. Thomas from Athens says, great monologue. I also believe that U.S. intelligence organizations have information that terrorist cells are now in place in the U.S. due to the U.S. southern border invasion by jihadists. So the itty-bitty wall may be a partial sop to unhappy Dems, but more so that U.S. terror strikes may be imminent. Witness Christopher Wray's comments on October 16th. I did see that, Thomas, and I saw Christopher Wray's comments, and I think his comments were rightfully said. I mean, I would say it too. We need to be aware. We need to be keenly aware. We need to take precautions. And I agree that Biden has put us in a weaker position with his feckless border policy. But Thomas, if you have a link to an article or something that says that they believe cells are active and something's imminent, I'd like to see that because I have not seen anything saying imminent. I've just seen precautionary statements that anybody should say. I don't care what administration's in there. Champ from Decatur said Tuesday is just Monday 2.0. Okay. Is that good or bad? I guess it's like a...
It could go either way, whichever way you're looking at it.
Second Monday.
Second Monday?
I don't want it to be a second Monday. We only need one Monday.
Just one Monday. I can go with, I'm on board with, Camel Eve.
Camel Eve.
I'm on board with that.
I'm liking Camel Eve. That's where we are and where we're staying.
And Taco Tuesday.
Taco Tuesday. That does have some ring to it. All right. Well, listen, we got a great show laid on for you. Kicking the Anthill is going to kick off here next. And folks, let me just tell you, we have got in front of us one of the most significant moments in modern warfare that we've seen, not just because it's happening, because of how it's happening, where it's happening, the environment in which it's happening, and oh, by the way, who the actors are. So right now, the powder keg that people have feared for decades is on the cusp of potentially going off. Already, there are reports coming out of Palestine that and people taking to the streets and doing the usual chanting and death to Israel because they say a hospital was struck by. Listen, Israel has guided missiles, all right? Israel has laser-designated fires. They have the ability to put rounds on target with great precision. Israel is saying, no. Hamas launched one of their own homemade rockets and hit their own hospital. We did not strike a hospital. Palestine is saying, nope, 200 to 300 dead when the Israelis bombed a hospital. It's a war, y'all. You shouldn't be doing it. You shouldn't be there. They've already been telling you to get out, so get out. It's going to be tough. It's going to be like this for a while. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right. Covering down on some major ground across the northern half of the most beautiful state in the nation. This one right here, Alabama, my home. I'm talking about, man, this show goes like way down south of Birmingham and up north of Huntsville and Tuscaloosa, back to Gadsden, parts of Georgia, Tennessee, and even Mississippi, all thrown in just for good measure. Coming up top of the hour, don't forget, Mike Durant, former special operations aviator, businessman, senatorial candidate. He'll be on the phone with us talking about what we're about to talk about now, kicking the anthill. So let me just start off with a few things just to give you the image of where we are. Right now, there has been no ground invasion yet of Gaza. We are seeing the staging of troops. We are seeing the posturing of logistics. We are watching what they would call the IPB, the intelligence preparation of the battlefield. We're watching things begin to slowly form so that Israel, at a time of its choosing, can launch. And I'm assuming they still will. Just so you know, story here on the Post-Millennial that came out yesterday, the Biden administration has selected 2,000 U.S. troops to prepare to deploy in support of Israel. What does that mean? Well, they didn't identify them. They just did say, though, that they will not be serving in combat roles. You may think, well, why are we sending people over there? Here's the deal. I guarantee you what this is. There's a thing in the Army vernacular called the RSOI. The RSOI is the reception, the staging, the onward movement, and integration of U.S. forces. So what you try to do is when you know you got something coming, or when you just have a contingency brewing, you send your RSOI teams forward and get them ready to receive troops. And, to lay on the quarters and to make sure the logistics hub's in place and get the dining halls ready. And, oh, by the way, just to even do the little things like when you get here, we're going to scan your ID so that we know you are in theater and we can count you appropriately. It's an accountability, a logistics, it's a lead guide and direct type moment. So that's what I'm imagining is probably happening. They're forward staging RSOI in case they have to surge U.S. troops to the battlefield for any reason. But anyway, 2,000 U.S. troops who are apparently already staged in and around Middle East and Europe are being told to be on standby for forward posture. The National Security Council spokesman John Kirby, though, also echoed sentiments saying, the president's sentiments saying that there are no plans currently to put U.S. troops on the ground in this fight. However, you have a separate article. I'll come back to that. John Kirby, what he said. Separate article here from the Hill. It is now up to 199 hostages that are believed being held in Gaza. Who does that? Who does that? Do you remember anybody in modern warfare that you look at and respect and go, well, I really appreciate the fact they took hostages. That's a good plan. We're not talking about prisoners of war. If they had taken an Israeli soldier off the battlefield and were holding him prisoner, everybody would go, dang, look at that. But what they've done is they've got elderly and children and people they dragged out of their homes, and they're literally holding them hostage. There's zero benefit to doing this. There is zero about the laws of war, if you get down to it, that would allow for this. What you're looking at are thugs who have taken them for the purposes of terror, number one, for the purposes of trying to create negotiation leverage, number two, and number three, to use them as human shields. That's what's happening. They're hoping that Israel will go, man, we can't go in. They've got women and children down there in the bunker. At some point, Israel's not going to know where they are and may still have to do what they have to do, which is a horrible situation to be in, but it's not Israel putting themselves in that position. It's Hamas. The State Department confirmed, by the way, that 30 U.S. citizens have been killed, and that of the missing, 13 of them are U.S. citizens who may actually be in the pool of hostages. Here's another one. I told you a minute ago that John Kirby, National Security Council spokesperson, said that there's no plans right now to put boots on the ground. However, when he was being interviewed by Shannon Bream from Fox, this story came from Breitbart. Shannon Bream said to him, Senator Tom Cotton has said that special operations forces should be there. They have an obligation to get Americans out, especially when we think they're being held hostage. Would we have U.S. boots on the ground for that? That's when he said there's no plans or intentions to do so. And she said, but to retrieve Americans? And that's when he came back and says, well, what I won't do is rule anything in or out. when it comes to getting our hostages home. So I'm of the belief that probably, and in fact, if you remember the other day, we had retired Lieutenant General Jerry Boykin on the show with us, retired from a career in special operations. Hostage rescue was a part of his bailiwick, one of the founding members of Delta Force. And he said, and I agree, that he absolutely would imagine that the Joint Special Operations Command, JSOC is the parent unit that has SEAL Team 6, Army Rangers, Delta Force, all of these major special missions units underneath their command structure. That JSOC is probably spun up and has hostage rescue capability already forward in the theater. We'll see. But let's talk about what it's going to be like. Urban warfare has got to be one of the most brutal and difficult places to conduct military operations of anything. I can just tell you, here's personal experience. Baghdad in 2004, during the Shia uprising, when the Mahdi militia was going at it, was amazingly difficult. I mean, when you get mortared, and like at one point my fob took in like 120 rounds of mortar fire in about a 4 or 5 day period, and you try to find the point of origin. Well, the point of origin is hidden behind buildings. They fire them sometimes from rooftops, and it gets crazy. Then you have the narrow confines of the foreign streets. And then you have the heat, because in Baghdad, in the middle of summer when it's 128 degrees, well, guess how hot that concrete gets? We called it concrete hell. And then you have missions. We would do things like cordon and search, or cordon and raid, or a combat sweep where you basically started on one end and flushed everything towards the other end of the neighborhood. And when you do a cordon and search, for instance, and you're going to basically surround an entire neighborhood with your forces, no one gets in, no one gets out, and then you start going door to door, it gets pretty dicey. It also gets pretty crazy because sometimes the streets all look the same. There were neighborhoods in central Baghdad that predate the formation of Baghdad as a modern city. The Sheikh Omar district of downtown Baghdad, the streets were so narrow we couldn't get a Humvee through them. It was all on foot. And then all of a sudden it would open up into a big courtyard, and then it would go narrow again, little alleyways. And you got to where, did I go to that door already? I'm not sure. It looks like all the other doors. And so we had to actually carry chalk in our pockets. And as we searched a home, we would come back out the door and mark the door with a big X so that the next people who came along wouldn't be searching the same house twice. I mean, folks, it gets to be madness. And then you hear a shot fired and you can't tell where it's coming from because it echoes off the brick walls. Or when the car bomb goes off, the dust comes flying down the alley. You're not sure if it's next to you or down the street. All I'm saying is this. In my limited experience, urban warfare is extremely difficult. But it's not just my experience. In the modern world right now, Fallujah and Mogadishu and Mariupol, from what we hear in the battle between the Russians and the Ukrainians, are probably the three biggest examples of deeply, deeply difficult urban warfare. But now we're about to see Gaza. I want you to picture this. The Gaza Strip. It is 1/3 the size of Huntsville. Can you imagine that? It's 1/3 the size of Huntsville. Huntsville, remember, what did you tell me? 200 and how many square miles? 200, I got to find it now. I wrote it down in my notes. Yeah, Huntsville has 220 square miles. Boom looked it up for me before the show. 220 square miles, Huntsville. Population of Huntsville, roughly 215,000-ish plus. All right, so there's 220 square miles, 215,000 people. Gaza Strip, 88 square miles, 2 million people. Can you imagine? 1/3 the size of Huntsville with 2 million people crammed in it. What that means is they're stacked up. Majority of the buildings rise above the ground and people are stacked up in those buildings. It's not like you have a great deal of space to work with. There are several cities within the Gaza Strip. But what we're looking at right now is the northern section is the worst. There's an article here that I pulled off of Business Insider, and I'll do this one for the break. Business Insider, the headline, It's a trap, warns a UK spy chief, as Israel prepares for months of brutal urban warfare. What they're saying here in this article is brutal urban warfare on the streets of Gaza and its maze of tunnels. A former UK intelligence chief warned that it's a trap. It's only a trap if you don't know it's coming. But I'll say this. I do agree with the article. The premise of the statement being made is this is what they want you to do, guys. They're drawing you in. Israel knows that. They're not surprised by this. They just don't have any choice anymore. Israel has not wanted this fight the entire time. And the enemy has built an extensive network of tunnels that is like beyond anything that we have in. I mean, we had the underground tunnel complexes in Vietnam, but they were dirt. You know, we had situations in other places like in Mariupol in the Ukraine where it was a lot of undergrounds under a factory, but it was limited space. They're saying right now that the amount of tunnels that have been dug, the Hamas itself brags they have over 300 miles of tunnel network. They call it the Gaza Metro. They're all concrete. They go from building to building. They got power. They got lights. They got storage bunkers. They got command rooms. And they're everywhere. They've been digging tunnels for years, and they're built like bunkers. Anyway, we're going to take a break right now. We're going to come right back. What we're about to see is, I think Israel's about to kick an anthill, but they don't have any choice. When the anthill is taking up a big chunk of your yard and causing problems, you got to do something about it. In this case, Israel's about to kick that anthill. We'll see where it goes. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, just plain right. We'll be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Well, don't forget, by the way, top of the hour, we'll have Mike Durant calling in, talking with us about his thoughts on what it was like to be a part of the planning and operations in a the urban environment of Mogadishu was incredibly difficult. And if anybody can speak to it, he can. Ali from Harvest just texted in and says, I saw on Rumble that there are jihad camps here, 35 in total, one of them in Alabama. Fake news or not, I don't know. Ali, if you've got a link to an article on that. Now, I'm not going to be a bit surprised to find out that there are jihadis in America. I'm not going to be a bit surprised to find out that there are not even training camps for jihadis in America. But if they've identified 35 of them and one here in Alabama, I'd like to know any more about it. If you got an article, go ahead and send a link to it. We'd appreciate it. Jenny from Decatur, why would President Biden go to visit a country at war? He's showing solidarity, and he's probably making rounds in the regions, and he's hoping he could have a chance to meet with leaders of Hamas and maybe probably broker some kind of peace deal, I guarantee you. But breaking news right this very minute, Jenny, is that Palestinian leader Mahmoud Abbas has canceled his meeting with Biden based upon bombings that are going on in Gaza right now. So, yeah, he's making a trip. I mean, I think it's interesting. I don't recall him making a trip to Ukraine 10 days after Russia invaded. But anyway, there's that. Raven from Russellville talking about the troops that are deploying. He says, no combat role. Anybody remember Vietnam? Yes. And he says, terror cells in my state? Cool. Shoot, move, and communicate. Presto, no more terror cells. Raven's always looking for a little something, isn't he? Just saying. Yeah. Jeff from Indiana texted in and says, Phil, there doesn't need to be any urban fighting. I would simply announce that we're going to flatten every building that we come to at a designated time to get people out. And if they don't get out, that's on them. It's the same thing as if you're told that a hurricane's coming, it's going to wipe you out unless you get out. You'll probably die. So here's the deal, though, with that, Jeff. The laws of warfare do not smile upon those who go in and just salt the earth. And I get it. To some degree, you have to. But what we're looking at right now is a situation where the people of Gaza have been given warnings. They've been told, get out. There are buildings being flattened, but they're choosing those buildings carefully because they want to find the ones that have a military target attached to them. Whereas Hamas could care less. Hamas just sends unguided rockets into the atmosphere and just sees where they land. I mentioned those tunnels to you. Story here on CNN, dated this morning. They call it the Gaza Metro. It says the myriad of tunnels under Gaza are best known as passageways used to smuggle goods from Egypt and launch attacks into Israel, but there exists a second underground network that the Israeli Defense Forces refer to as the Gaza Metro. It's a vast labyrinth of tunnels, by some accounts, several kilometers underground. Wow, that deep? Good Lord. How can they go that deep? Used to transport people and goods, to store rockets and ammunition caches, and house Hamas command and control centers, all away from the prying eyes of the IDF's aircraft and surveillance drones. Now, I remember back in the day when we were looking at the invasion of Afghanistan, and there were all these speculations about the vast tunnel complexes that the Taliban have, and they didn't. In this case, though, Israel has been discovering and filming and showing the world the tunnels for years. And they are pretty extensive. I bet some of them are rudimentary, but there's some of them that they're going to find out are very sophisticated. And what they're also finding is that, Hamas has been spending a massive amount of money building tunnels that could have been used to assist their people. And they've been building these tunnels with concrete that was probably taken from concrete provided for civilian aid that could have been used for things like bomb shelters or whatever else, but no, they've been building tunnels. Hamas in 2021 claimed to have built 500 kilometers, that's 311 miles, worth of tunnels under Gaza, though it's unclear if that figure is accurate. If it's true, though, it's a little less than half the length of the entire New York City subway system. Woo, good Lord. And by the way, they don't have the kind of sophisticated equipment it would take to build a subway system. The article here points out they're probably diggers using basic tools, burrowed deep underground to dig the network, then wiring it with electricity and reinforced by concrete. And it's going to be something else. Getting through those tunnels is going to be the deal. Last one I've got before the break. This came out a couple days ago, about 5 days ago. The Modern War Institute at West Point published a piece called "These Are the Challenges Awaiting Israeli Ground Forces in Gaza." And this is, by the way, this is written at the U.S. Military Academy. It says, if Israel is indeed planning an assault by ground forces into Gaza, these forces will confront a range of challenges. Some that will match those of recent urban battles, others that stem from unique characteristics of the urban terrain. What will they look like? And it says, a series of recent urban battles have been fought in cities with comparable population densities like Baghdad, Fallujah, Mosul, Kiev, and Mariupol. But as lessons make clear, one of the most densely populated territories on Earth can present major difficulties for for military forces. So yeah, it goes on to point out, and I won't try to read the whole article to you, but it says combat in dense urban terrain is the most complex and difficult type of warfare. And it's true, y'all. I mean, listen, I mentioned earlier just my own personal experiences in Baghdad. It's amazing the complexities. I mean, what you found happening in the Battle of Mogadishu, if you've seen the movie Black Hawk Down, is they would go down a street believing they were on track to get somewhere, only to find the street had been blockaded, have to back out and go back out the way they came, under withering fire in both directions. And then you turn a corner, and next thing you know, you're in the clear, but then you turn another corner and you just hit a hornet's nest again. And while the bad guys may own the rooftops, you've got no choice but to stay on the ground. And it can be, listen, and all that, you have the presence of non-combatants. I can just tell you right now, we literally had moments where we went in with a breach team only to find the place filled up with women and children. And then we go in another time and we'd find things that, no, that was not what we expected. It's a dicey place to conduct warfare, and it's going to be something else. Coming up next, Mike Durant is going to give us his thoughts on what the planning and operations in an urban environment looks like from firsthand experience. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. We'll be right back.
You're listening live to Rightside Radio with Phil Williams. It's hard to go wrong when you're on the right side. Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right.
Alabama's syndicated news talk leader, Rightside Radio. Phil Williams here live in the Rightside studios for hour number 2. Y'all, we got the local, the state, the national, sometimes the international, and yeah, we cover all of it like the dude just said, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Well, we're finishing up number 1 on today's Triple Dipper, where I've been talking about what I've referred to as kicking the anthill. And listen, the urban environment presents challenges all on its own that most other military operational environments do not have. And nobody better to come on and talk about that than Alabama's own Mike Durant. Mike Durant, you may recall, is a retired Chief Warrant Officer 4, spent the bulk of his career flying in special operations with the 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment. He's also, by the way, one of the participants in what is often referred to as Black Hawk Down or the Battle of Mogadishu, Operation Gothic Serpent. He wrote a best-selling book about it called In the Company of Heroes, and I highly recommend the book. He's been successful in post-military life, though, too, as the founder and CEO of Pinnacle Solutions. In his military career, he was a master aviator, 3 distinguished flying crosses, a Bronze Star for Valor, a Purple Heart, and he's on the air right now. Mike Durant, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Phil. Good talking to you again.
Yeah, you too. Thank you so much for making time today. Listen, a topic that I know that you have spoken and written about quite a bit because you lived it is the Battle of Mogadishu. I mean, what that was like to plan and conduct. And by the way, the true battle we think of as Black Hawk Down was not the only foray into the city. You guys were there for a while dealing with the conduct of operations. Talk to us. Give us your unvarnished thoughts about the difficulties of planning for urban ops.
Well, I don't think anyone would argue that it's the most difficult place to conduct operations. And if you think about Somalia and how that turned out, I would classify it as almost a semi-permissive environment, meaning not everyone is necessarily an adversary. And that's a big issue because, there's a difference between the Israelis having to fight Hamas and the Israelis having to fight the entire population of Gaza. I mean, there's two different challenges there. And as the anger continues to build and as people continue to die, I just saw a report that, apparently up to as many as 500 people were killed in a bombing attack in Gaza. That's going to fuel the fire and the anger and the hate against the Israelis who are acting, in my opinion, justifiably. But in the end, it creates an entire population that is now going to fight or resist. And the first challenge that creates is a lack of intelligence, because if they're anti-Israeli, which they probably are, getting human intelligence out of anyone is going to be very difficult. And it's one of the most valuable pieces, and every plan is based on intelligence, as you know. I mean, you have to start there. Understanding where the enemy is, where their defensive positions are, what kind of weapons they have, and in this scenario, where are all the hostages, and what are they likely to do with them? I mean, that's all most reliably going to come from human intelligence. And right now, they probably don't have access to that.
No, you're right. Every operation, all you can do is plan on what you know, but what you don't know is what changes the mission when you get on the ground. And you as an aviator, you guys had to plan. Talk about a difficult environment. You can't always land where you need to land. Obviously, you're putting troops, you're putting some of your operators down on rooftops or fast roping in. Everything changes about the way you conduct yourself. And then at the same time, the narrow confines make it difficult to even find people once you're getting called in on, some type of response operation.
Right. And, and communications has improved tremendously, but I would speculate that it's, urban operations is going to continue to create a challenge because line of sight communications don't work. The radio signals won't go through the buildings, or they won't go through a series of buildings. So in open terrain where you could talk freely back and forth and make sure everyone had situational awareness, which is critical to avoid fratricide, in an urban environment, oftentimes you lose contact with your own forces, and then you increase the risk of fratricide. It's just the list goes on and on and on. It also gives the advantage to the enemy because they know this terrain like the back of their hand. They've lived there, and for the Israelis, every door is going to be different. Every building is going to be different. Every situation is going to be different, and they're going to have to make their way through all of this while the enemy is sitting there with complete knowledge, complete cover and concealment, understanding the terrain, understanding where all the choke points are. It's another thing about urban environments is they sort of channel you into, certain paths or routes to get to your target, and that obviously creates a vulnerability. So it's just an awful situation. With the mix of civilians in there, it makes it hard to prep the battlefield as we would call it. In other words, put in some heavy firepower to suppress the enemy. That's going to lead to civilian casualties, and then that just further fuels the fire in terms of how the population of Gaza is going to view this invasion.
Well, so you mentioned something there about civilians. Part of my background was the soft side of civil affairs, and we dealt with what happens with displaced civilians. They called them on the battlefield, and that's a huge piece. I did a little checking before the show started today, and basically the Gaza Strip is about 1/3 the size of Huntsville, which has a population of roughly 215,000. So 1/3 the size of Huntsville, 215. Gaza Strip has that limited 1/3 the size of Huntsville with 2 million civilians in it. And just trying to weed your way through the crowds of people at times, or watching, like I said, kicking the anthill. If you hit a building, people are streaming out of it. Who's a combatant and who's not is the shoot no shoot moment that every soldier dreads.
Right. I was just going to bring that up. What that densely populated area does is it causes another challenge in terms of identifying who the true threats are and who is potentially an innocent civilian or a bystander. They're being given ample time. They should evacuate, but not all of them will, and it's just going to be very, very, very difficult.
Well, it is, and I guess I would ask, just in your own thoughts, what do you expect from Israel? I'm assuming that at some point you did some interaction with, I don't know about Israeli forces, but in your special operations days, there had to have been interaction with foreign governments. What do you think is going to wind up happening next?
Well, I think it helps you understand how they feel right now to call it their 9/11. That's sort of what's being thrown around. They feel now like we felt in 2001, and everyone's angry, rightfully so. Everyone wants to seek justice, rightfully so. And the Israeli military is very capable. They're highly trained. They're highly motivated. They've got great equipment. And when they decide to do whatever they decide they're going to do, which sounds like invade to eradicate Hamas, they will likely be successful, but it's going to be at a very high price.
Well, last question for you, Mike, and expand on this as you can. But we had retired Lieutenant General Jerry Boykin on the show the other day. I think you know him. He was actually there in Mogadishu on the ground as well, I believe. He
was. I do know him.
Yeah, a great guy, and his anticipation was that JSOC forces, all our special mission units that include folks like the 160th and include Delta and others, that he would anticipate that they are already spun up and probably forward deployed. What do you anticipate with the possibilities of JSOC U.S. forces rescuing American hostages?
I think it's possible. I think it has to be closely coordinated just because of all of the ongoing operations there. But, that's one of our primary missions. And when there are Americans in harm's way in bad places in this world, we were the ones that got called upon to deal with these situations. So, whether we actually ever execute or not, I can guarantee you we are prepared to execute, and it's some of the greatest people that ever put the uniform on, in my opinion, having worked with all of these organizations before. And if it can be done, they're the ones that can do it.
Well, Mike Durant, we appreciate your service and we appreciate your friendship to the show and being on with us multiple times. But thanks again today for providing some color commentary on where things stand at the moment, all right?
It's my pleasure. It's great talking to you.
All right, you too, Mike. Take care. All right. Well, listen. There you have it. I would agree. I would anticipate that these are the finest among us in terms of the guys in uniform that are in the special mission units, and I would bet that they are already leaning forward on the issue. Whether they go in or not, we'll wait and see. But that was a guy who has flown them in before. All right, folks, we're going to take a break right now. We'll come right back, and time to switch gears. Let's talk about that speaker's race. Number 2 on the Triple Dipper. What's going on? Did they already have a vote? Yes, they did. I'll tell you how it worked out. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. We'll be right back. I see you singing over there. And we're back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right. Yeah. Boomer's over there singing. I saw it, man. How do you not sing that one?
That's a good one.
You
can't not.
I've often wondered, was the how, was it planned?
No, definitely not.
think so.
I think it was just
It just
a
happened.
fun thing in the studio, and then they're like, I'm going to keep it.
It's exactly. And then every time it goes to concert, if they didn't do the how, everybody be going, what just happened?
Where
Where'd
is
it go? Anyway. Hey, a couple of texts that are in the line. I'll tell you, if you want to text in or call in, the number is out there for you. It's 833-687-4448. That's 833-68-RIGHT. Same number, call or text. Marcus from Huntsville says, why has Joe Biden not demanded all American hostages turned over immediately? You know what? It's a great question, Marcus. So when you said that, I thought, wait a minute, did he? And I can't find any record that he did. If somebody can show me where President Biden stood at the podium, not like, I don't want to hear what Karine Jean-Pierre said. I don't want to hear what John Kirby said. I want to know, has the President of the United States stood at a podium and said, the United States demands the return of its people, and we want it by God right now? I don't think he has. Marcus, great question. I don't know. Maybe he's. Hey, what? You know what? Here's what I speculate. Because he always leads from a position of weakness. That's why. His deferential, manner on the foreign policy issues and the military issues is always to lead from a position of weakness. So I would bet you, he's been advised, well, Mr. President, if you do that, it might stoke some concerns among Hamas. They might get mean. They're already mean. Anyway, the bottom line is they don't like us. They say death to the United States all the time. They took, upwards of somewhere around 13 to 20. We don't know exactly how many U.S. citizens are now being held hostage, we believe, in Hamas territory in Gaza. And so, Marcus, I can't answer your question except to say because he's Joe Biden. I even went down the list. I mean, Biden has said, and there's like one article saying he's doing everything, working round the clock to free U.S. Hostages. Okay, but he hasn't looked in the camera and said, release them now. Anyway, somebody else asked, why is he going over to Israel? I would bet it's partly because not only does he want to try and meet with the players, but there's probably going to be a photo op, I would imagine, where he stands next to Benjamin Netanyahu to show a visible sign of solidarity between he and the nation of Israel, between the United States and the nation of Israel. And he should. I don't fault this. I do think it's a little odd that he doesn't do things in other places that we wonder why he doesn't do. But in this case, I think the best thing he could do is to make a physical presence known as the leader of the free world standing next to the leader of Israel. If he doesn't do that when he's there, then I will have something to say about it. John from Harvest also texted in and says, Phil, we essentially just need to show support, let the IDF do what they need to do. Unfortunately, there are too many useful idiots here protesting in favor of the terrorists. The moral relativism between Western civilization and barbarism is stunning. I agree. I had when was that? Remember last week I had a whole moral equivalency. I had a whole dipper called moral equivalent. I think it was.
I think it was last week.
Yeah, it was last week. Yep. You are so correct, John from Harvest. And I agree. Show support. Let them do what they got to do. Give them what they need. The Israelis are not asking for us to put boots on the ground. Here's the thing. I did see a report earlier. There's one report out there. Oh, gosh, who said it? The Wall Street Journal? That they have sources telling them that if Iran, which has been making threatening overtones towards Israel, Iran said you'll unleash hell if you go into Gaza. And saying that basically if Iran gets into this thing, all bets are off. U.S. forces in the region are probably going to get some form of active. So keep your eyes on that. And then Jeff from Indiana says, come on, Phil, Biden doesn't care if he gets our people out, but what time he cares about anything is whenever he can benefit the abductors like Iran. We'll trade you some people for $6 billion. He said, gee, I don't guess anybody else will be getting kidnapped anytime soon. What an idiot, he says. There is that. Yeah, okay. Listen, we're going to switch gears. I'm going to be going into the speaker's race here momentarily. I will tell you that if you want to call or text in, we'll still take commentary on what we've done so far. Kicking the anthill, that's where we are right now. Okay. I tell you what, let me do this. I will tell you this, breaking news. If you haven't already been tracking it, just in the last couple hours, they had the first vote for House Speaker. And I say the first vote because Jim Jordan was not successful in the first vote. Oh, okay, go figure. House Judiciary, story here on Fox News right now. House Judiciary Committee Chairman Jim Jordan lost the first round vote to be House Speaker on Tuesday after 20 Republicans joined the Democrats to shoot down his candidacy. Wow, there's that. I'll fill that in for you a little bit more after we get back from the break. Have I got time for this call, Boom? What do you think? Let's do it. Line one, Ike from Harvest. How you doing, Ike?
Well, this is actually Mike from Harvest.
Mike,
okay.
how you doing?
I'm doing well, sir. I think you're being far too generous with our commander-in-chief. I don't think he gives a rat's patootie about the hostages because of where they were and his caucus and whatnot. And I think he's really only going over there just to keep the Israelis from doing anything.
Well, you may be right.
Generally being in the way.
You may be right. He may be literally going over there trying to negotiate some kind of a stall action and keep things from getting bigger.
Well, the Israelis really can't do anything while he's around because then they run the risk of people shooting rockets and stuff at him. So,
well, I'll be honest with you. I'm going to bet that he's not going to be there long. But I don't think Israel's going to hold back from doing anything. If they see a need to have to go forward and do, I bet you they're going to go forward and do. Hey, Mike, thanks for the call. We're up against the hard break. You have a great day,
problem,
man.
Sir. I understand. Right. You have a wonderful day.
You too. Take care. Bye-bye. I don't think they're going to stop. I think that they'll be careful. I think security is going to be massive. I think on the one hand, Netanyahu's glad to hear the president is coming. On the other, he's like, I need him out of my way. Because it creates a nightmare for security reasons there. And I'm going to bet, too, that they're taking over a pretty solid contingent of security for the president, not just Secret Service. I bet he's got some operators standing by. All right, folks, Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. We're coming right back with number 2 on the Triple Dipper, the speaker's race. Yeah, it's a race. We'll talk about it. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative and just plain right. Well, hey, listen, by the way, you hear ads playing during the break. Just know this. Part of the way that Rightside Radio sustains itself as a separate business, because we are indeed a separate business, is by selling ads. I mean, we're not owned by the stations that you hear us playing on. We own our own content, and we send the signal to them. But yeah, part of the way we handle that, though, is by selling ads. And if you want to advertise on Rightside Radio and be assured you're playing on our airtime, then listen, you call us directly. Go to our website, rightsideradio.org. That's rightsideradio.org. Click on the spot where it says advertising and contact. Send us a message, and we will get back to you ASAP. We would love to have you on the team. Advertise on Rightside Radio. Go to rightsideradio.org and follow the trail of breadcrumbs back to us. We'll get right on it. I've got a caller on line one, Jeff Rowe from Indiana. Hey, Jeff, how you doing, man?
I'm doing pretty good, Phil.
Good.
Today's my last day for the week, so I'm doing real good.
Wow. Okay. Well, you taking some time off or what?
Oh, I got doctor's appointments tomorrow, and I got to have a little bit of vein surgery, so
Oh, okay.
gotta put my legs up for a couple of days.
Well, all right. We'll be praying for that then, man.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. What's on your mind? What you thinking about?
Hey, you know, what's going to have to happen? The Palestinians are basically cannon fodder because you got all these Arab nations and everything supporting them and giving them money to do their dirty work for them and everything. But if you find, you know, what's funny is none of them will take any of the refugees in whatsoever because they know they're big trouble.
Yeah.
They're basically useful idiots.
Well, and you look at it too, and why is Palestine? Why are the Palestinians not complaining about Egypt? I mean, they're not saying boo about Egypt, and they're blocked from even leaving Gaza because of Egypt.
Yeah. Well, no, like I said, nobody wants them. They could come. Take them out there in boats right now if they wanted to, but you know, nobody's doing that either. They could have an armada come get them, but they're going to have to say, you know, we've tried to live with you. You were offered citizenship into this country and live peacefully among us, and you decided not to. They're going to have to go through systematically and just say, you know, you've lost. We're going to take this territory over. You're no longer welcome here. Push all the buildings down, just level the whole place because it's going to be just like Japan. If we'd went there with our soldiers, it would have been lose a lot of lives unnecessarily because these people they want to fight to the death. You know, the ones that are fighting, and they don't care how many people die.
Well, they don't. They also don't care who they put at risk because they're holding. They got human shields, and we're hearing reports that Hamas is telling Palestinian citizens to stay in place and not to evacuate, which just basically means, hey, stay right there and get blown up.
Yeah, I mean, if I would go through there and I would say these buildings, this row of buildings is coming down at certain hour. If you're there, then you've committed suicide, and I would just keep doing it until they basically need to level the whole place down. Anybody that's in the tunnels and everything will be trapped under the debris. It's a bad thing to do, but what other choice do they have? I think they need to garner a whole bunch more ground. I think they need to just, you know, start taking all the positions that they've been fired from and just take those places over and declare a victory of war.
Well, easier said than done. We'll see how it plays out. But, hey, before I let you go, too, switch gears. What do you think about the speaker's race? Jim Jordan going to make it?
I hope he does. I mean, everybody says this is bad, and everything, but you know, that's not such a bad thing, I don't think, because we've only got one house in a three-tiered stool here. You know, you got the presidency and the Senate that we're not really going to get nothing done anyway that they want to do. Only thing they can do is basically cut funding for things, and because the Senate's not going to approve it, and then Biden's going to veto anything they basically do. So, to me, it's not a bad thing that they're out, to tell you the truth. But I hope Jordan comes. I seriously hope Jordan comes through because we need to turn the conservative, and we need to turn the Republicans back to the conservative party. They've got so many rhinos out there and stuff that, you know, everybody said, you know, what Matt Gaetz did and everything is all bad, you know, but, you know, hey, they made the deal. He didn't follow through the deal. he got what he deserved, basically. And I hope that Jordan, becomes Speaker. And I think we're gonna. It's gonna like I say, it's gonna be like herding cats. But the money, if we can keep Jordan from folding into the big money interests, we'll have a big win.
Well, we'll see where it goes, brother. Listen, you be careful on the road, and God bless you as you have those medical procedures done this week. Keep us posted on how you're feeling, all right?
All right. Sure will. Thank you, Phil.
All right. See you, bud. Yeah, I don't disagree with the fact that it's not a bad thing that the House is not totally active right now. But the reality is, majority of the people's business is still getting done. But there are some aspects of the people's business that still can't be accomplished without having the actual Speaker of the House in place. Just yesterday, I didn't know it until Congressman Gary Palmer was on the show yesterday. He said that under the current rules with the interim Speaker, it takes upwards of 30 days to bring something to the floor. Well, we can't have that. I'm hoping they get this finished, but my real hope is it's Jim Jordan. So just so you know, here's the deal. U.S. Speaker of the House, the vacancy being filled, first vote already occurred today. I take it back. They had the opportunities within caucus to make decisions. They first elected Steve Scalise over Jim Jordan, 5 days ago, something like that. And Steve Scalise couldn't garner the support. It was split. I mean, it was very split. It was like he had a vote of like 113 to something like 98. Well, that's a whole lot to overcome. So Steve Scalise, who is widely respected by the members of the body, and I got no issues with him, although I don't think he's near as conservative as Jim Jordan. Steve Scalise said, you know what, I'm going to step away. I'm not. So he took his own name out of the hat. There's that. That left Jim Jordan. Well, Jim Jordan goes back and says, all right, listen, if Scalise is out, I'm still in. What do you want to do? They had another meeting. It was a lot closer. Now, I believe that originally Jim Jordan was still off by 50, which was closer than Scalise had been. Off by 50. Well, if you recall, right off the bat, one of the extremely outspoken naysayers for Jim Jordan was Alabama's own U.S. Representative Mike Rogers, which, by the way, Boomer, you and I now live in Mike Rogers' district. That happened, 3 weeks ago?
Right, yeah.
So
about 3 weeks ago.
That's going to be our congressman, the guy who was saying, I am never voting for Jim Jordan. I'm going to work with the Democrats, try and make this happen. U.S. Representative Mike Rogers drew rebuke, though. Story on 1819 News. He drew rebuke from conservatives after signaling a willingness to cut a deal with the Dems to resolve the U.S. House Speaker impasse. He has since come around. Can we just say he has had a change of heart? I mean, I'm pretty sure he didn't just hear from a whole bunch of folks. He says, Mike Rogers does, that he. And by the way, you had a resolution being drafted by members of the state Republican Executive Committee to basically take him to task. You had people already talking about primarying him for this very thing. Well, and he's known as a moderate. He's a moderate. He is. He's also a very powerful member. He's the chairman of the House Armed Services Committee, one of the most powerful committees in the House. He's been up there a long time. He actually followed, if I'm not mistaken, he followed Bob Riley. So that tells you how long he's been there. But Congressman Rogers, didn't sit well. The rest of the delegation, for the most part, was saying, we're on board with Jim Jordan. Me personally, I texted quite a few of them. I got immediate responses from Barry Moore, said, I'm all in for Jim Jordan. Gary Palmer, all in for Jim Jordan. Robert Adderholt, all in for Jim Jordan. Never heard back from Dale Strong. Congressman Strong, if you're out there, you might want to answer your text messages once in a while. But nonetheless, Congressman Dale Strong, after Mike Rogers had his epiphany, came out and made sure that the world knew that he was now backing Jim Jordan. I'm hearing that Dale Strong is being mentored by Mike Rogers, so there's that. But story on 1819 News, dated yesterday afternoon. U.S. Representative Dale Strong has officially endorsed U.S. Representative Jim Jordan to be Speaker of the House. Strong made the announcement on Monday in front of the Westin Hotel in Huntsville. So basically he's saying, I've always been for having a conservative speaker. He didn't say he's always been for Jim Jordan, but he's saying now he believes Jim Jordan is the right man. Okay, good. Okay, so what's the sum total of all that? The sum total is Alabama's delegation, with the exception of our one Democrat, Terry Sewell, is now saying we're in for Jim Jordan, along with most of the rest of the caucus. So they just voted on the House floor, just in the last few hours. Jim Jordan did not have enough votes. He had to see where he was. I guarantee you there were people who were being cagey, not wanting to take his calls, not talking to him openly, sort of watching to see which way the wind was blowing. Well, they went to the floor, and he failed by 20 votes. All the Democrats voted against him. They voted for Hakeem Jeffries, the Democrat. 20 Republicans joined the Democrats. So he's 20 shy right now. Who were they? Well, we had 6 people that went ahead and voted for Steve Scalise anyway, even though Steve Scalise took his name out of the hat. I'm sorry, 7. 7 Republicans voted for Steve Scalise. Then you had additional people casting single votes for like Tom Cole of Oklahoma and Tom Emmer of Minnesota and Mike Garcia of California and Thomas Massey of Kentucky, none of whom are actually in the running. Those were just placeholder votes because they didn't want to vote for Jim Jordan. Well, okay. I get it. He wasn't your first choice. Time to rally. On the one hand, I recognize that what happened with Matt Gaetz dethroning Kevin McCarthy was some Republicans joining with Democrats. I want it to stop now. We're ready to move on. And I would say my sense is that Jim Jordan is actually the first speaker that has kind of excited some people on the outside of the bubble. All right, those of us looking in who consider ourselves to be conservatives are like, wow, Jim Jordan. So in a minute we come back from this break, I'm going to take up the issue of who's Jim Jordan? What's he like? Where'd he come from? What's his record? I think you're going to like it. I mean, it's big doings, y'all. As a conservative, he's potentially the most conservative member of the body that we've had run for Speaker of the House since maybe back to Newt Gingrich. We'll talk about it. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative and just plain right. Hey, I got to take some text messages because they're stacking up on me, brah. So text line, 833-687-4448. That's 833-68-RIGHT. How do you feel about, I would love to know your thoughts about whether or not Israel should go in hard on Gaza. And secondly, how do you feel about Jim Jordan for Speaker of the House? Aaron from Decatur says, if I can get my mouse to work, Aaron from Decatur says, I can certainly get behind Jim Jordan, but Massey sounds interesting too. I agree. Thomas Massey, very conservative. I think he's pretty squared away, but he's also not in the running. That's the thing. I mean, they had a whole caucus meeting where the caucus considered two candidates. One of those candidates, Steve Scalise, has now taken his name out of the hat, which leaves the one candidate. So if someone else is going to get in there and go, okay, I will work the votes. I believe that I've got the political backing now of my caucus. Okay, right now what they're doing is they're basically delaying the potentially inevitable. What I don't want to see is Republicans that then join with Democrats to put a Democrat in, or what some might call a uniparty vote. I don't think that's going to happen. I'll be honest, I don't think it will at all. I think what's going to wind up happening is there's going to be a few holdouts that are going to play the Matt Gaetz kind of role, and they're going to basically try to make those conservatives pay for what they've done. And then Jim Jordan's going to wind up being Speaker. That's what I think is going to happen. Merle from Hartselle says, well, good Lord, that's a very long, Merle, I tell you what, you sent me a small book, and I'm not sure what it's about, but I will check it out, although I do see that it was about something regarding an individual who earned 5 Purple Hearts. So, brother, it does let you know I will read that soon, and I appreciate you letting me see it. Jeff from Green Hill says, so tired of these rhinos. Okay, I'm not going to say the rest of it. But yeah, Jeff, here's the deal. Don't get too caught up in the fact that this is happening. Truthfully, there are always going to be people who have, in this case, like an R by their name, but they have different methods of being an R. And I would love to believe that everybody was a true conservative. They are not. You have moderate Republicans. You have go along to get along Republicans. You have establishment Republicans, which are the ones who like to stay there. It becomes their job, not their calling, just their job. And then they don't want anybody else to mess around with it. They want to be the guys who know how to control it. And then you have what I would consider to be the conservatives who come in with the conservative viewpoint with intent to try to right the ship. All of them wind up forming the Republican caucus. What we're watching, don't lose sight of this. What we are watching is democracy in action. Where else in the world are you able to see the leader of one of the major pieces of government peacefully and orderly taken from his position, and then the orderly and stable form of replacement go through the machinations of voting and getting ready to vote again, and then soliciting support, and then working the floor, and then making sure you have the respect of the body? And so all I'm saying is this: is it painful? Yeah. But look at it more like a surgery that you had to have to fix a wound. All right? The surgery was necessary, but isn't it great to have the surgical option? So that's where we are right now. If it drags on much longer, you'll find me getting a little more irritated. But right now, I'm having to remind myself that what we're watching is democracy. Don't lose sight of that. A couple more text messages. Trina from Elkmont says, do you think Hunter is going to go to Israel with the big guy? Wow. I don't know. Boomer, is he on the plane? Can you check?
Yeah, let me jump on that. I'll call him up real quick.
Yeah, put your Hunter tracker on and see if you can figure it. I don't know. Listen, you know what, Trina? I'm going to say no.
I'm probably going to say no.
I'm going to say no.
I would say no only because everything going on. You don't want to bring any more.
Yeah.
Audio and visual attention.
There's no need to load that baggage with the rest of the baggage, right? Right. So Trina, I'm going to guess no, and Boomer affirms that. We both say no. Thomas from Athens, says Israel needs Biden out of the way ASAP so they can justly deal with Hamas. Yeah, I agree. I think he's going to be there. He's going to serve a purpose, hopefully, that's meaningful, hopefully, and then get him out of the way. But I'm going to guarantee you that his own security forces want him out of the way too. Here's the other thing too. Think about this. It's not just where Biden. They can rush Biden into a bunker. They can't rush Air Force One into a bunker. So Air Force One is sitting, very exposed on an airstrip. Can you imagine the amount of security that it takes? I mean, just the rockets coming in alone can be pretty darn difficult to deal with. So it's going to be his security element's not going to want him to stay on the ground long, is what I'm saying. Charles from Decatur. Ours best elected speaker, Patty Murray, a Democrat, is next in line for the presidency when Biden drops and cackles, abdicates. Okay. Grandstand from Huntsville says, don't forget there's a lot of Dems that run as Republicans to get elected. There is that. And then Brian from Decatur. I'll vote for the first candidate that openly states the Biden administration has directly financed terrorism. Okay. All right, folks. Phil Williams, Right Side Radio. Hour number 3. We'll finish up speakers and then move to home fries. Alabama's syndicated news talk leader, Rightside Radio. Phil Williams here live in the Rightside studios. Hour numero 3 coming up right now. Phil Williams sitting here with Boomer, local, state, national. We cover all of it. Like the dude said, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Well, hey, so I'd said text it in. Tell us what you think. I got some. So let's get a few more of those real quick. Craig from Huntsville says, I will not call those against Jordan rhinos. That's a pejorative without a real meaning. What I will call them is obstructionist. Anyone against Jordan will not get their choice, so the honorable thing would be to admit that they've made their case and did not prevail. It's time now to close ranks and stand up for the party and the constitutional republicanism. Well put, Craig. Absolutely. Doman from Harvest says, Israel accused of bombing a hospital in Gaza. I know, I saw that. Israel has already responded no. And by the way, it's not going to matter. The Palestinians are going to wind up saying Israel did it, and that's what's going to inflame the passions on the Arab street. It doesn't matter what Israel says. Israel, though, is responding by saying, that was not us. That was a Hamas rocket. They're crappy homemade rockets. That's what hit the hospital, not us. And by the way, keep in mind which one of the two forces has the precision-guided munitions. It's going to be Israel. So is it really what the world wants to believe that Israel, with precision-guided munitions, decided to target a hospital or accidentally hit it? No, I don't think so. Cornelia from Moulton says, before this point in time, I never knew that a non-representative could be Speaker of the House. Has there ever been a Speaker elected who was not a representative? I think it happened one time. I think it was early in our history. My recollection was somebody said it was John Adams, but I don't know that for a fact. But yeah, it's possible. There have been several names floated out there. Even saw it today, George W. Bush was floated. I think he's enjoying retirement. Shannon from Boaz, Biden's a joke when it comes to American hostages and people. Let's not forget how he left Afghanistan. Oh, such a good point. Britt from Athens says, in all reality, how much danger is Biden in while in Israel? What's the likelihood of getting caught up in an attack? A lot greater than being in D.C. There's that. Thomas from Athens, not per Epoch TV, he says, but this is a result of hearing regarding, I don't know what he's trying to tell me. Thanks, Thomas. I can't figure out what you're trying to say, man. So let me do this. Just so you know, Kevin McCarthy has spoken on the issue, interview with Fox News yesterday. Kevin McCarthy says he's very confident that Representative Jim Jordan will have the votes to become his successor. In his words, I feel very good about where Jim Jordan's at. He's been an integral part of our team when we took the majority, helping us get the majority. The real challenge here is, and I know a lot of people out there are afraid it will break Republicans off and go work with Democrats, but the only reason anybody's even talking about that is because 8 Republican members work with every single Democrat to remove me from Speaker and put us into this tailspin. He's still got some angst. I don't blame him. I mean, if I had a position I had worked for years and suddenly had, 8 people from my own party help dethrone me, I'd be pretty aggravated. But the reality is he is doing the right thing by getting out there. And my understanding is he's trying to tell people, vote for Jordan, vote for Jordan. And I'm going to bet you Kevin McCarthy's going to wind up with a good seat. He's going to be put in charge of something meaningful under a Jim Jordan speakership. You watch. He's going to wind up being the chairman of the oversight committee or the chairman of maybe judiciary where Jordan was. Who is Jim Jordan? So just so you know, Jim Jordan was elected to Congress in 2006. He's 59 years old. He represents Ohio's 4th Congressional District. He's also, by the way, he's the founding chairman of the House Freedom Caucus. So the Freedom Caucus are the most conservative members of the body. I'll never forget. I was a Club for Growth fellow. I went to a fellowship foundation meeting in D.C. A small group of us, about 25 or 30 in the room, with Mark Meadows. And Mark Meadows, the former member of the Freedom Caucus, who then went on to be Trump's chief of staff. Mark Meadows talked about the fact that when he was still in Congress, he had an idea for a tax cut. It's a great story, y'all. Great story. Listen to this. He had a great idea for a tax cut. He and Jim Jordan. So Meadows is scratching it out on paper, and he's sending it to, over to Jordan. He said at one point he thinks Jordan was on the hood of his car in a Walmart parking lot, scratching something back out and sending it back to him to look at. And they went back and forth, and they put together this idea. Next thing you know, he asked for an opportunity to meet with President Trump to talk to him about it. He said he went over, and he's sitting in the outer room waiting area, not in the Oval Office, but like where you wait when you're waiting for the opportunity to go see the president. And the then chief of staff, whose name escapes me right now, retired Army officer, I think, but the then chief of staff steps out and goes, Congressman Meadows, come on in. He thought, well, that was quick. He said he walked in. There's Trump sitting there at the Resolute desk, got most of the cabinet with him, and members of the Federal Reserve and others that are there, and the Treasury Department, and Trump's going, can we do this thing? And he goes, hey, Meadows, glad you're here. Come on in. I read your memo. He had the memo that Jim Jordan and Mark Meadows had scratched out together and sent to the president just for his consideration. And he's looking at him going, Meadows, you think you can really get the votes for this if we do this? Can we make this kind of a cut? Yes, sir, Mr. President, I really believe we can. Okay, do it. Put it in. Meadows said he still to this day has a copy of the memo with Trump's signature on it. It says, good job, signature. And that became the Trump tax cuts. That's who Jim Jordan is. Jim Jordan and Mark Meadows were the authors of the original version of the Trump tax cuts that became the biggest tax cut we've had in recent history. All right, so in 2015, he was a member of the House Freedom Caucus, their original chairman. They took hardline stances on government spending, healthcare, immigration, all kinds of things like that. He's forged a strong connection with Trump. Trump has actually endorsed him for the position of Speaker. Now, there have been times when Jordan's been out there just ticking people off in the right way, as conservatives would like. I mean, every once in a while you want somebody who's going to be a fighter, right? Well, how about this? At one point, he was subpoenaed by the Democrats to appear before House Judiciary, which he now chairs, by the way. He refused. It resulted in lawmakers referring him and a handful of other Republican members of Congress to the House Ethics Committee for daring to refuse to their, January 6th committee subpoena. He wasn't going to do it. I ain't playing your game, he said. Go pound sand. And so when they said, you will appear before the naysayers of the January 6th commission, he said, no, I'm not going to do it. Trump gave him the Presidential Medal of Freedom in 2021. Called him an inspiration to freedom-loving Americans everywhere. Now he's the chairman of House Judiciary. He's one of the Republicans who's leading the impeachment inquiries into President Biden. Bottom line is he's a former wrestler. He's a 4-time state champion in high school. He's a 2-time NCAA wrestling champion while he studied at University of Wisconsin. He became a wrestling coach at Ohio State. And then somewhere along the way, he decided to get into politics. That's Jim Jordan. I don't, you know what? Anything could happen. He could become speaker and, next thing we know, he's not near as conservative as we used to be. But I know this. Of the candidates that we've had sitting in the wait to be voted on for the potential of being Speaker of the U.S. House, this is the most conservative guy we've had in memory. And if you can imagine that the Freedom Caucus, which only formed for the first time in 2015, can step up and put their first chairman in as Speaker of the House of Representatives, the guy who helped author the Trump tax cuts, y'all, it's a whole new day. All right, we're going to take a break. We'll come back from that. We're going to jump into number 3 on the Triple Dipper. Home fries. Got to cook up a batch because there's stuff happening in and around your state. Y'all text it in or call it in, 833-687-4448, and we will be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative and just plain right, saving the world one soundbite at a time. Quick text, Steve from Owens Crossroads says Dan Crenshaw for speaker. Wants him a one-eyed frog man for a speaker, I guess. That's you know what? I think he'd be something. I think it'd also be interesting to see him as Secretary of Defense one day. There's that. By the way, Dan Crenshaw sometimes gets out there, not as conservative as I would like, but no one can argue with his bona fides. I mean, the guy's anyway. I got a caller on line one. Let me grab that real quick before I change gears. Kyle from Sheffield, how you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you, sir?
I'm good. What's on your mind?
Good deal. Jim Jordan, wow. First time I heard this man speak, I think I was watching a clip off YouTube. And this man's conviction that he speaks with is just, I mean, to a Democrat, it's probably the least bit the least to say intimidating. I mean, because the way he's not persuasive, he tells it like it is, but he said he's a truth sayer, and he just calls a spade.
Yeah.
And the day that we live in, calling a spade is not a form of common sense as it used to be, as you allude to quite so often.
Yeah.
But Jim Jordan is, I mean, everything that I've listened to him do since that first clip, it's just there's not a man in Washington more thorough than he is. Mm-hmm. And you mentioned he helped help President Trump draw up his tax cuts before he put them into effect. This is a man that loves America, and he loves America because he values freedom, and he values freedom because his conviction has put him in the position he's in.
Yeah, I would agree with all that. I mean, I've never found him. He does not appear disingenuous at all. He doesn't come across schmarmy when he. I know he always takes his jacket off. It's kind of his shtick, but at the same time, none of it seems contrived. He doesn't feel like he's putting on airs. He just seems like a real dude.
Yeah, and he's not egotistical in any way. Yeah. I mean, he's just fierce, and there's not a lot of limp-legged liberals that are going to like him. No, it's the furthest thing that they want right now. But I believe when you say it'll be a whole new day, I really do look forward to having Jim Jordan as Speaker of the House of this country.
Well, I agree with you. Kyle, thanks for the call, man. Appreciate your input, and you're spot on. Have a great day, bud.
All right, you too.
I tell you what, this is a topic that I think's got a lot of attention. I'm going to look at a few more texts here. Steve from Owens Crossroads, I already mentioned, said Dan Crenshaw for speaker, but then Trina from Elkmont came back and said Dan Crenshaw's a rhino. He's for the red flag laws. That's what I said a moment ago. He's not always as conservative as I would like on some of the policy positions that are out there. Chris from Madison says just say no to, he calls him Eye Patch McCain. Okay. A.K.a. Dan Crenshaw. He's a rhino, all talk, no action. Look at his record on the Second Amendment and abortion. Okay. Brian from Decatur says, there's no threat from Hamas if Biden visits Israel. Without him, they have way too much to lose for behind doors political agreements and funding. Point. You got a point. Steve from Huntsville, with 2 aircraft carriers in the region, I think Air Force One will be just fine. They will declare a no-fly zone. Where do you think they'll park the other plane? It's going to be funny to watch. Mark from Laredo, Tennessee says Alveda King for speaker. Mark from Laredo, Tennessee. Is that okay? So you're getting out of the box now, brother. That's interesting. And then Thomas from Athens coming back to me with some clarification says, what I was trying to say was Judicial Watch has a suit against Capitol Police to obtain the January 10th communications emails after a court hearing in August. Okay, but Speaker McCarthy says was told not to release them according to legalese. I don't have anything for you on it, man. Okay, thanks. All right, we're going to wind up switching gears. Boomer, I'm ready to cook up a batch of home fries. Yeah, cook them up. All right, so here's the deal. We can talk about, all the things that are happening internationally, what's happening with foreign policy, what's happening with things in D.C. All that's important. All of it matters. I just don't want to ever lose sight of the fact, though, that sometimes there are things happening right here in our backyard that are worth knowing about. What's happening down the street from you? What's happening in Montgomery, your state capital? Listen, how many times have I said it? What comes out of Montgomery oftentimes has more impact on your day-to-day life than what comes out of D.C. So things are happening that you need to be aware of. Like, for instance, let's find one here. How about this? Right next door in the state of Florida, a district court has recently, this story off Yellowhammer, dated yesterday. A district court in Florida has now ruled that Florida's Agency for Healthcare, which is, basically their Department of Public Health, has violated the equal protection rights of transgender patients and is looking to force the state Medicaid system to pay for procedures. Oh, okay, this is a whole new, listen, when tax dollars are going to be used through Medicaid to pay for transgender surgeries on minors, or for anyone for that matter, we've touched on a whole new realm. To me, that's an elective procedure. First of all, it shouldn't be happening on minors, which under the age of 19 in Alabama, shouldn't happen, period. If they cannot, by the way, get their own Costco card, they shouldn't be allowed to get surgeries that alter their bodies. There's that. But right now, just so you know it, your own Alabama Attorney General, Steve Marshall, is supporting the effort of the state of Florida. He filed, keep in mind, your Attorney General, Steve Marshall, is the head of the Republican Attorneys General Society in the United States. He filed an 18-state brief. In other words, he rallied up 18 other states, got them to join in his brief, led by Alabama, filed it with the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals in support of Florida's decision to decline the use of Medicaid dollars for transgender surgeries. And he points out, this is your Attorney General. He says, healthcare authorities in the United Kingdom, in Finland, in Sweden, elsewhere, have all recently recognized that gender transition procedures are experimental, if not pre-experimental. And he's basically saying, this is a bad idea for us to get into the notion that we're going to use tax dollars to go down this experimental road that is not necessary for life. But he points out, in his words, he says, the district court rejected the growing consensus and deferred instead to radical interest groups like the World Professional Association for Transgender Health, which advocates for these procedures. Yeah, that's your Attorney General. Glad to hear it. I got more of that. We'll cook up some more home fries as soon as we get back from this break. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative and just plain right, covering down on some major ground across the northern half of the most beautiful state in the nation, Alabama. And I mean to say, y'all, this show, wow, we go like way down south of Birmingham and up north of Huntsville and Tuscaloosa, back to Gaston, parts of Georgia, Tennessee, and Mississippi, all just thrown in there for good measure. I'll tell you who else covers a lot of ground, man. Southern Immediate Care. Southern Immediate Care is a chain of clinics that help sponsor this show, but they are all over our listening area. They're in places like Anniston and Gadsden, Attala. They got like 5 locations around the Birmingham area, 2 newest ones being Chelsea and Hoover. Southern Immediate Care, open 7 days a week. How cool is that? You wake up on a Saturday morning, someone's got a fever. What are you supposed to do? You don't have to wait till Monday. Look up the nearest location online of Southern Immediate Care and go check it out. They'll take walk-ins. They'll take all ages. I'm talking pediatric up to geriatric. They'll do all of them. So, yeah, Southern Immediate Care is actually who I use personally. And I've been using them for quite a while. This has been a lot longer than they've been advertising. I know the guy who owns the whole chain, and he is a right-side ruffian. But every time I've walked in the door, Southern Immediate Care, clean, friendly, professional. Listen, you check them out. You need something, you find the location nearest to you, Southern Immediate Care, and do me a favor, tell them you heard about it on Rightside Radio. So I'm gonna cook up a batch of home fries. Whoop, whoop. By the way, Boomer, I was at an event this past Sunday or Saturday, shooting with Moms for Liberty.
Oh, yeah.
Emily Jones was there.
You said there were quite a few people there.
Yeah, there was.
That was cool.
There were lots of. It was good to see some folks, right? Emily Jones, Representative Ben Harrison, and Lee from Huntsville. And Lee said she's been listening to the show enough now to where she says "whoop whoop" on her own when things happen.
That's awesome.
Hey, start of the home fries here. AL.com is rushing to the defense of liberal Mayor Randall Woodfin. Can't have him getting slighted for the fact that he deleted his pro-Israel tweet. So liberal Mayor Randall Woodfin, just to remind you, the other day, he tweeted out, "Stand with Israel," with a picture of the Israeli flag. And then he got lambasted for it by liberals. And they're like, "Bruh, you can't do that. I'm out of here," and saying things like, "Why would you say that? What's your stance on Palestine? You're a no for me, big dog." That kind of. It was just his Twitter feed got filled, and they deleted it. Gone. Well, a Woodfin administration official on Tuesday night clarified that the mayor does support Israel. Okay, awesome. Just not on his Twitter, I guess. Denise Gilmore, senior director of the mayor's office division of social justice and racial equity. Oh my gosh. I did not realize that was her title until I said it. Boomer's over here shaking his head. Yes, Boomer, that's her name. Denise Gilmore, senior director. Senior director. She has a bunch more of them. There's other people under her.
Of course. Senior director. You want to make sure that you feel really good about yourself.
I would assume there's also a junior director and a host of future directors. Yes. Senior Director of the Mayor's Office Division of Social Justice and Racial Equity addressed a gathering of Birmingham's Jewish community at a local Jewish community center and passed along a message from Woodfin saying, "I want to make my position very clear. The attack on Israel was an act of terrorism by Hamas. The killing and kidnapping of innocent people should be unacceptable to everyone. I support Israel protecting the lives of its innocent citizens, including children." Okay. Well, I'm glad, but he still hadn't posted it back on his social media. He was too busy, I think, getting married. He's on his honeymoon or something. But anyway, there's that. How about this? Home fries. We got a situation right now. Y'all remember that we just had our congressional lines redrawn for us by the court, right? I mean, the legislature draws the lines when the census comes in, takes the numbers. They don't move much, but they got to move some every time. And so our 7 congressional districts have been largely the same, since 1992, I believe. And yet the court finally decided we weren't racial enough. And so the court decided to go ahead and order us to redraw the lines. So we did. And the court still didn't like them. So the court said, that's it. We'll draw them ourselves. So they appointed a special master, and they picked one. And we now have an open seat, because they took 2 of our members of the delegation and drew them into the same one. And so Congressional District 1 now has Jerry Carl and Barry Moore both living in that district. Congressional District 2, which includes parts of Montgomery and going down towards the Wiregrass, is wide open, y'all. Ain't nobody in there. There is no incumbent now for the land upon which District 2 sits. So you're thinking, okay, open seat. This is like the melee. This is where it gets big. You're going to have all kinds of people running for it. They're not running against an incumbent. Why not? And it's very important, you understand, because it's about racial equity. So you're certain to see people flocking to it to run. Yesterday was the first day of qualifying. Nobody put their name in the hat. What? I thought this was an imperative. I thought we had people signing up left. I thought it was going to be a huge primary, like a goat rodeo. Well, no Republican candidates qualified in District 2, although you remember we have our friend, former state senator Dick Brubaker, who I serve with the legislature. He was on the show a couple of weeks ago and announced that he was considering running for that seat, so we'll see what happens. But so far, no Republicans have joined. And, oh, by the way, the Democrat Party also opened its qualifying, and no Democrats have yet qualified. We'll see. So far, ain't nobody there. Qualifying ends on November 10th, by the way. Primary is on March 5th. So, yes, you've got about, 3 weeks left of qualifying, and we'll see who's going to be in the hopper. But it's going to be interesting. Here's a good news story, by the way, in home fries. Cook me some home fries, Boomer. I just feel the need to hear it sizzle. There it is. You remember that we had several Alabama church groups caught in Israel? I think I told you that too.
Yeah, I remember
of course
that.
I told you that. You were here. What am I saying?
I was here.
Hi, Boomer.
I
We
was
talked
listening.
about it one day. Were you there? Anyway, basically, if Boomer's not here, the buttons don't get pushed. So, yes, you heard it. ABC 3340 reporting that one of the other groups got home. So the Aniston group. You know what I want to do? I want to get somebody from that.
There you go.
This is
Great minds think
this is
alike.
what
That's what it
happens.
is.
I want to get somebody from that church on. I mean, they're right here in our listening area. And we had two of them, actually one in Vestavia also. We need to track them down.
Yeah.
Hey, why don't we just spitball and talk out loud? What do you think?
I like that idea.
Okay, we're on the air. Everybody's hearing us. But yeah, church group, ABC 3340 is reporting that the church group from Aniston, from Hillcrest Baptist Church, they were stuck in Israel. They have made it out. They are now in Jordan, I think, as of a couple of days ago. And they expect to be back in Miami very soon. Let's see, when did this article come out? They may have made it back by now, as a matter of fact. They might be back in Alabama as of last night. So we'll find out. But my hope is, if anybody out there listening knows someone at, I think it was Brook Hills. That was a church. Anyway, no, it's Shades Mountain. Shades Mountain Baptist Church in Vestavia and Hillcrest Baptist Church in Aniston. If you know somebody from one of those churches and they would like to come on and tell us about their experiences, I think we'd love to hear that. I think it'd be great. That's good news. Last one before the break. I just find this to be an interesting piece in terms of home fries. It's kind of home fries. It's kind of not. Did you know, boom shakalaka, did you know that we have a store, there's a store in Old Town Jerusalem, in Israel, that specializes in selling University of Alabama memorabilia and swag.
I had no clue, but that's awesome.
It's kind of cool. Even
I
as
think
an
it's
Auburn
cool.
fan, I find that to be kind of cool.
I think that's pretty cool.
So yeah, the owner of the Alabama Shop, it's called. The store that sells all kinds of Crimson Tide trinkets in an Arab market in Old Jerusalem. Says he and his family are safe after well-wishers expressed worry about his welfare. This is a story from AL.com. A guy named Hani Imam is a Palestinian Muslim who attended the University of Alabama back in the 80s. And he went home, opened the Alabama Shop in 2000 after Crimson Tide items in his father's store became pretty popular with tourists. All right, so very cool. Anyway, he posted on his social media, thanks for all the concerns and prayers. I'm in Jerusalem with my family. We're safe and secure. Praying for peace and love for all people. God bless you all, and roll tide.
Wow, that's cool.
And right before the break, I got to tell you, so I was in student government at University of South Alabama, right? Did I tell you about this? I think I have. I think I've told it once
Maybe.
before. So I ran for vice president of student government, right? This is my foray into politics, I guess. But I run for the vice president of student government. And the guy who ran against me was from either Palestine or was a Palestinian, or he was Lebanese. I forget which. Either way. But his name was Eli Waked. So Eli Waked ran against me. So it's Phil Williams doing all the things, running for vice president, student government. I'm out there giving all the serious speeches. I have my motto on all my signs. Says, Phil Williams, your vote for you. That kind of thing. Eli Waked, all of his signs said, "Party naked with Eli Waked." They were all over campus. Dude,
Yes, you have.
Dude took me to a runoff.
Eli, where is he today? That's what I want to know.
I don't know. Partying naked somewhere, I guess. All right, let's take a break right now. We'll do that. We'll come right back, and we'll cap off the last couple of bites of home fries and call it a day. Oh, my goodness. Listen, what an amazing show. You never know what you're going to hear. My political foray began with a competition against Eli Waked, partying naked. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. We'll be right back. We are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative and just plain right. Listen, making common sense like a superpower is what I like to say. And oh, by the way, somebody else who's got some superpowers is ZLA Solutions. ZLA Solutions. You check them out, man. ZLA Solutions. If you're a business owner and you need help with stuff, they'll swoop in there and help you. They can do things like help you with, sorting and containment, quality control, logistics, warehousing, all that kind of stuff. But man, their bread and butter remains to this day what they started off doing, staffing. You need people, ZLA Solutions can find them for you. Doesn't matter whether it's onesies and twosies, hard to find kind of niche skills that people don't usually have. They'll go track them down. They can also get you an entire shift of people to run the plant or whatever you got. I always like to say it's blue collar, white collar, or no collar. It don't matter. They can do the recruiting, the background checks, drug testing, all of it. ZLA Solutions. They love to say, and they mean it. They don't go ahead and make it. They just make it better. In other words, their goal in life is to help you make your business better. You check them out, ZLA Solutions, and tell them you heard about it on Rightside Radio. I would appreciate it. We are cooking up a batch of home fries. Yeah, we are. Rounding up. What was that call you got a minute ago? I heard you laughing.
Yeah, so we got a call just a second ago. It was Thomas from Athens.
Yeah.
He was telling me that they had a group of like 45 people that went over to Jerusalem a little ways back, and they actually went to that Bama store.
Oh, the Bama store?
They did. And they bought some crimson and white plaques that said Shalom, y'all.
Shalom, y'all. That is way too good.
Yeah.
That's
pretty awesome.
Do they have them?
I like that.
Do they have them in orange and blue?
I don't know about that.
Okay.
Those may be like special edition.
What are you trying to say?
Maybe you could take it either way.
But
Thomas from Athens, he is an Auburn fan, but he said it was pretty. I mean, even for him, it was pretty cool.
Well, by the way, speaking of teams, reminded me of Pick'em that I forgot to do last time, and so I got this like huge gap now in my scores.
Hey, keep it up. You never know who may forget.
That's true.
This next week.
Yeah, let's don't mention it to anybody that we're doing Pick'ems anymore. I got to thinking though, you know what we should have done? We should have done a Pick'em on House Speaker.
Oh,
all the names that are getting thrown in. Who's going to be next? When are they going to have a speaker? How long will it take? What date will they arrive?
Ooh.
It's just we could have.
You could have done that.
It could have. You know what we could have done? What we could have done, have you ever seen those fundraisers they do with cow droppings?
What?
You've never seen this?
I don't think so.
Okay, this is a great fundraiser. It's a Booster Club fundraiser.
Okay.
They go out and they lay out a grid on the football field.
Okay, yeah.
And people buy squares in the grid. And then they take a cow and they let it loose on the football field. And wherever that cow drops first, if that's your square, you win money.
I think I have heard of this. That's awesome.
So we should have gone out there, is done a grid, put all the different members of the house on it, and just turned the cow loose and see which one we get.
That would have been fun. Now we know that we need what we need to do for whatever type of race next time.
I'm thinking the GOP primary may have to have a cow turd. What do they call this? They call it cow pie raffle or something like that.
Cow pie raffle.
I just think it's epic.
Yes.
A couple of text messages here. Brandy from Athens, she joins me. She says, I forgot to say my picks, Phil. Cow chip bingo. Cow chip bingo. That's what they call it. John from Huntsville. By the way, Brandy, thank you for making me feel better that I'm not the only one. John from Huntsville. Boomer, you get a solid A because you finally played some home fry sound effects. Phil, you get an A- for talking too many positive comments about University of Alabama.
Positive comments.
He says, plus I heard that story about the Alabama shop at one of two churches I go to. So congratulations, Boomer. You're today's winner.
Hey.
But he's the Bama fan, John.
But I also played a lot of sound effects for the home fries.
Whatever. Brian from Huntsville. There you go. Nick Saban for Speaker of the House. Okay, Brian from Huntsville. JT Lacey Springs. Bama store in Jerusalem. More proof that Bama is the best college football team in history. It's got nothing to do with the football team. It's about the state. That's what it is. That's all the state. Ron from Huntsville says only Roll Tide at the store in Israel. Okay, fine. I don't care. Doesn't bother me. I don't care.
Okay.
No, that's a thing. Not a thing. Jeff from Indiana texted in and says, as for the mayor in Birmingham, pretty sad when your constituency supports evil and you might want to rethink your party affiliation. Just saying. He won't. He's way too liberal for that. Mark from Laredo, Tennessee. just sent me a bunch of emojis, and I'm not sure. House on fire, I think is what he's trying to say. I think it's what he's trying to say. House on fire. Emojis. Thanks, Mark. I had to decipher it, but I think I got it. Cody from Huntsville sent me a meme. It says, breaking, Jordan cancels a summit with U.S. President Joe Biden and Egyptian-Palestinian leaders in Amman Wednesday. I think that's because an Egyptian and Palestinian leaders in Amman. I don't know. By the way, I don't know if that's correct that Jordan has canceled everything. Biden just left. I mean, they showed it on the news. He was just leaving. He would not be going because there's nothing to do over there. But we did see, though, the Palestinian leader, Mahmoud Abbas, has canceled his meeting with Biden. So whether or not we're still going to have, I think Biden is probably still going to meet with Jordan. They're one of our allies, and Egypt, they're one of our allies. So we'll see what happens, but I don't think they're all going to turn him down. Lord, that'd be something. And then Rap from Athens. Why not give the temporary speaker the 30-day power to bring bills to the floor? He had the you-know-what to kick Pelosi out of her office, which McCarthy didn't. By the way, that was epic. I will say that. Remember that? So, yeah, Speaker Patrick McHenry with his little bow tie on, he gets the gavel, and the next morning he evicts Nancy Pelosi from her office. Awesome. We didn't even get into a couple things that I've got here, like the fact that Lieutenant Governor Will Ainsworth believes, as a part of our home fries discussion, that I-65 widening is the biggest infrastructure project that we need to focus on. And then our own Chairman John Wall of the Alabama Republican Party, he is having no problem at all making waves, and liberals don't like it. Like, for instance, the organization called Read Freely Alabama that supports having sexual content in books and children's sections of libraries. They want to know why John Wall is on that board taking issue with the things that they're standing for. Okay, maybe because he's a Christian conservative. Just saying. All right, listen, we got plenty more content tomorrow. Keep your eyes on the prize. We got a lot of doings out there. I mean, two of the day's dippers, kicking the anthill and the speaker race, they don't end. They're still ongoing. Might be talking about them tomorrow. And Council with Jeff Poore and Dale Jackson. So I'm looking forward to it. All right, you guys, we love you. Y'all have an amazing night. Boomer and I back here tomorrow, too. We will see you then.